Now we start with the latest on the coronavirus situation in South Korea. The nation is seeing an uptick in the number of new infections as we head further into the week. Now, with an easing of restrictions ahead, it seems some people might be feeling complacent. For more on this and other COVID-19 updates, we have our reporter Choi Min-jung in the studio with us. Good afternoon, Min-jung.
Good afternoon, Mok-yeon.
Now, I heard that there was a big jump in new cases today. Can you tell us further on that?
Right, the country reported 1,952 new cases today. This is a jump of almost 700 cases from Tuesday and around 380 cases from the same day last week. The weekend effect has officially come into play as cases usually begin to increase from Wednesday. But we are seeing a bigger increase as people seemingly become more complacent ahead of eased restrictions next week.
Now, Min-jung, speaking of next week, I've heard that people will have to show their vaccine passes in order to get into some certain places, such as singing rooms and fitness centers. But what about for people who haven't received their vaccinations?
Well, for those who haven't been vaccinated, they will need a negative PCR test. This also applies to those who have only received the first dose of a two-dose vaccine like Pfizer's or Moderna's. Fully vaccinated people will also need a negative PCR test if 2 weeks have not yet passed since their last shot. They must remember that they should get tested a maximum of 48 hours ahead of using the facilities. Regarding PCR tests, authorities are expecting a spike in the number of people getting tested as cases are expected to rise with many restrictions lifted. And to prevent an overload, they are considering charging for PCR tests needed to enter high-risk facilities. But for the time being, the test will remain free of charge. And besides this, there were also confusions as to whether or not a vaccine pass is needed to enter hospitals. The authorities yesterday clarified that people will not need it when going to see the doctor. However, vaccine passes will be mandatory for those visiting or looking after patients.
Now, that was the situation here in South Korea. Now, can you tell us about the possibilities of people, what the latest on the possibilities of traveling overseas?
Right, so the U.S. This month bumped up the travel advisory for South Korea to level 3. This level means that people visiting from the U.S. should reconsider travel to South Korea. The second toughest level in the scheme indicates that there is a high level of COVID-19 in the country. The level was bumped up from level 1 to level 2 in August when the pandemic worsened in South Korea. For South Koreans entering the States, they will now need a vaccine pass. Currently, only negative test results are required. However, the measures have been strengthened as the U.S. will only allow fully vaccinated people with a negative PCR test to enter the country starting November 8th. Meanwhile, the WHO Emergency Committee insists that countries should not require proof of vaccination as the only condition for international travel. They recommend making changes to testing or quarantine measures instead, as many countries do not have equal access to vaccines.
Well, regardless of that, vaccinations seem to be important. Now, we're hearing that more vaccines that are developed here in the country are expected to be distributed this week.
Right, so Moderna vaccines manufactured by Samsung Biologics will be distributed sometime this week. Some 2.4 million doses will be used in the country to vaccinate people in the fourth quarter. And up until now, Moderna vaccines administered in Korea were manufactured overseas, such as in the U.S. and Europe. This is the second COVID-19 vaccine manufactured domestically and given to Koreans, after AstraZeneca's vaccine produced by SK Bioscience was distributed in February. South Korea is solidifying its position as a global vaccine hub as Samsung Biologics plans on delivering Moderna's vaccine across the globe as well.
All right, Min-jung, thank you for your report today. I'll talk to you again in tomorrow's morning newscast.
Thank you.